I want to have a look at a bilged vessel now. 3 different examples where we have midship bilging, and we're going to look at what happens to the GM of the vessel, because on some occasions it will increase, some occasions it will decrease. So we know that GM is Km minus Kg, and we know that the Kg remains constant because our displacement doesn't change. So what we're going to do is work out our initial Km, then our final Km, and all 3 are going to have the same dimensions except for what happens with the bilged compartment. So the initial Km obviously is Kb plus Bm. Kb is half the draft of 6.5, 3.25. Bm we can use lb cubed over 12v or b squared over 12d for the original value because we've not been bilged yet. So we get 8.01. 120 times 25 cubed over 12v. So the initial Km is 11.26. Now let's look at the final Km. Well, the sinkage is 20 times 25 times 6.5 over 120 minus 20, because of course we're bilged on the waterline, times 25, so that'll give us 1.3. Because we've lost the whole compartment and the 2 sides are equal there, we can simply divide the final Kb by 2, final draft by 2 to get the Kb. So the Kb is 7.8 divided by 2, 3.9. Now Bm, instead of being 120 by 25 cubed, of course it's 100 by 25 cubed because we've lost that waterplane area. The volume of course doesn't change. So we have now a Bm of 6.68. So whilst the Kb has increased, of course the Bm has decreased, so final Km of 10.58, we have a decrease in GM in this particular instance. So let's have a look at another example now, and this is where we have a watertight flat. As you can see there's a watertight flat, and we're now bilged above the watertight flat. So the dimensions are the same, 120 by 25 by 6.5. Breadth of the compartment is still the same, 20, but now we have a flat 3 meters above. Again, our initial Km as previous is 11.26. That's what we calculated on the previous one. The dimensions are the same, so the initial Km won't change. So let's look at the final Km. Well, the sinkage, 20 by 25 by 3.5, because there to there is 3.5. And of course, the water plane area has been breached, so we lose 20 there. So the sinkage is 0.7, so it gives us a final draft of 7.2. Because we have the watertight flat, of course we now have to do volume centroid moments to get the final Kb. And you have to be careful with the centre of the compartment that's been bilged, because it's 3 meters plus half up to the new draft. So it's actually 5.1 is the distance from the keel to the centroid of the bilged compartment. And it gives us a final Kb of 3.44. Bm, 100 by 25 cubed over 12 volume of times the volume of course, 6.68. Final Km is 10.12. So again, we have a decrease in GM because we've been bilged above the flat. So perhaps you can see here that one of the key elements, or the key element, is the waterplane area, because once that gets bilged, it definitely reduces the Bm of the vessel. So even though we have an increase in the Kb, it's not significant enough to increase the GM of the vessel because of how much we lose once our waterplane area is breached. So let's look at the final example where we have the same dimensions, except in this last example we're going to be bilged below the flat. And you can see straight away what changes is the waterplane area. It's not bilged. Now if the waterplane area isn't bilged, then the Bm is going to be the same, I think you would agree there, because we're going to use LB cubed over 12V. The length doesn't change, so the BM is going to still be 8.01. And obviously our KB is going to increase because we have to regain our lost buoyancy. Therefore, our GM will definitely increase. So if you are not bilged on the waterline, your GM will increase. And when we look at the figures here, we get our KB same as the previous example, because of course we have to allow for that value, just that value taken out there, so we've still got some extra on top, the volume there. So the KB is 3.65, gives us a KM of 11.66, so we have an increase in GM. So hopefully you can see on those examples that the key figure is the waterplane area, and if it hasn't been breached, then because our KB increases, our GM will increase. And it's down to the fact that the kg is constant, because our displacement is constant, because the water we're displacing is the same, because we don't actually displace this water when we get bilged. The water flows inside the hold as we go down. We're not displacing the water.